We'll go ahead to over the Wednesday, July 1st, 2026, City of Solon Regional Council meeting from the start of the pledge. Motion.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kramer is absent tonight, and Mackey here, Morris here. Please to perfect and approve the agenda. Any known changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes.
But we have a motion to perfect and approve the agenda. Move with the rules. Second. Our motion by Morris, second by Mackey. Gordon?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Okay, so our civility pledge, we pledge to promote civility by listening, being respectful of others, and acknowledging that we are all striving to support and improve our community. This takes to the citizen speak portion of the meeting. So I have a couple signed up tonight. Cindy, I'll start with you. We do try to keep to 3 minutes.
I just wanted to report what Solon Senior Report is doing. We just got 2 grants, a national safe and home project that we will be doing. Haven't got the details down yet, but then we also had another Community Foundations of Johnson County. That was a grant. We'll be using both of those to work with this project. And we're also going to work with the fire department, you know, with their part of their October fireman thing.
Smoking detectors.
Yes, yeah, we're thinking about replacing those. We'll see how many there are, replacing those old ones.
Sure.
And just wondered about the community center, if there was any updates on that.
We've had
Nothing.
some conversation, but nothing.
Okay.
Nothing big. All right, thanks, Cindy. Next we have Jake.
I'm gonna stand up, so I'm not talking to the back of your head. That's okay. I'm Jamie Miller. I had wrote it down just for notes, but, I live over on Windsor Drive. I'm just here to talk about, the old Eastwoods location. I know, thank you for talking to me about it on the phone, but it'd be great to get it on record. There has been somebody living there for about 7 months now, is the guess we have. It's been at least that. Under the assumption that construction was happening and remodeling. As far as we can tell, that's not happening. I grew up in a construction household. I know any project my father and uncle and husband has worked on, you can't live in it. My concern is safety. At that location, somebody has already passed away due to a fire. And exits in there are metal doors that are deadbolts, and neither of the windows will fit. So the person is sleeping by a roaster, by an oven, fryers, and by a water heater. There is no shower, there is a restroom. Those to me are unsafe conditions for anyone. I think it's ignorant if we ignore it, because we don't want to end up on the news saying, I told you so, we knew this was gonna happen. That building is also attached to 3 other businesses and 2 other areas that have residents living in that. So we have apartments that have children, matters if the kids are adults, one's cuter than the other. And we have some condos on their side. So I think the issue would be safety for everybody attached, specifically that tenant, if you want to use that. So that's my main concern. Also, I wasn't hearing much up about this, but what, I mean, it doesn't have to be public record, but I called the sheriff regarding the tenant a couple weeks ago because of an escalated issue with, behavior and violence. I wasn't gonna say anything, but the person that it happened to with me asked that I do bring it up to y'all today. I witnessed it, I was part of it, and so that behavior is something that we're nervous about regarding that is an alley back there. People park back there for Bluebird. There's an open field now, or what do you wanna call it? Kids around, there's bikes back there, there's stuff. I just, I think it's really important that we keep the safety, and that is a horrible situation for even our fire department to try to maintain if something's going on. And I know like we spoke on the phone, you have some stuff in the works. I don't want to interrupt once we start sharing what they are, so my question for it as it's going on is, why there does have to be a process with lawyers and stuff. If that means that the tenant doesn't want to leave. Or if that means there's an issue of getting him out, because he does have a history of that. So I would wanna make sure that isn't an issue here. So I do appreciate that it's already being addressed, so that's it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and, thanks for coming in and talking with us. Kevin, can you just kind of talk through the process so you can speak to it?
Yeah, so we did issue a notice of violation to the owner of the property, saying that he had 20 days to get whoever the person is out of there. The problem that he may have is if you have even if you have a squatter in a place, you have to go through the FED process to evict somebody from if you don't want to get in trouble. So you still have to, if the person doesn't leave by their own volition, you may have to go through a small claims action, which is called forcible entry and detainer action, to have the person removed, which at the end of the process, they get a court order and the sheriff shows up, and then they're, at that point, then the person will be removed from the property, for lack of a better term. So that's, so we gave notice to the property owner because it's his responsibility. He owns the property. So if it's not done in 20 days, in theory, what we could do is file a municipal infraction that's a violation, but by the time it gets in the court in Johnson County, it's gonna be 2 or 3 months by the time you get to a court hearing. So hopefully we can make this work and get some services for the person to maybe help them get out of that situation.
Can I say one more thing? That situation already had to happen with that tenant, so that's where I'm really concerned. Because just looking in, there's cigarettes being put out on tables, there's stuff where it's like, okay, there really is fire occurring. If that makes sense, there's stuff, so that's.
Yeah.
2 cents on that, I know I can't speed up what you're doing.
Oh, no, I
Just-
understand what you're saying.
I'm nervous, summer, so.
Yep,
anyway.
oh, I
Thank
understand.
you all for progressing with it,
I know that the property owner is very well aware of it. because
absolutely, yep.
The tenant is employed by said property owner
Yep.
and they're working to fix the situation.
Is there anybody else this evening that would like to speak during the citizen speak portion? So didn't get a chance to sign up. All right. That takes us to item 7, the consent agenda. So this would be approval of the minutes from the June 17th regular meeting, approval of the list of bills, treasurer's reports and transfers, building permits that seem sent out to us. And then we have beer and liquor license approvals for Salton Beach Days, it's a special class C, and an event application, the 2026 American Legion Legacy Run. Is there anybody that would like to speak here this evening as far as the Legion Legacy Run about the event? Sarah.
I think, is he zooming in, Kim?
We have Michael Walker, who's representing the American Legion Legacy Run at a national level. And then, of
Yes.
course, we have local representatives here who are partnering with them at our local American Legion. So
I can give you just a rundown. So the American Legion Writers National Chapter, like the United States, for the America's 250th, they put together this legacy run that's going through the United States, and they chose our post as a lunch stop. So we met with them back, I can't remember how long ago. There's 4 people throughout the United States that run this. It's pretty big. In April, but so they were pretty secretive about the route because they didn't want people buying up the hotel rooms that were gonna be on it. So I'm not sure what the route is. I think they released it, but when they wanted to come for a lunch stop for our post, which will be on Monday, August 24th, the gentleman that filled out the application, he's been taking care of everything. I'm kind of just been working as the liaison with the city, so they'll be coming from Tama, from what we understand that morning. They're gonna come in from the west And then they will process down 382. There's going to be between 300 and 500 riders. They're gonna give us a call when they're gonna be coming in. And then they'll stop down at the Veterans Memorial. And then they're gonna come up Main Street. And they'll be here for about 2 hours. And so we're gonna serve them a lunch. And then I think they have a presentation for the city. And so it's gonna be a really big deal, something really cool. So if you are around that day and can see it. I mean, it's gonna be a ton of bikes and so, but he has really handled a lot of the logistics. I know in County, they filled out the application, so. But on our end, we're just serving them lunch. The riders are not permitted to drink while they ride. So we will not be serving any alcohol to any of them. It's nothing like that. It's just a lunch stop. They want to patronize our town and so it's kind of an honor, I think, for the city of Solon that they chose our Legion post everywhere in the United States. So.
We have Ken, George, and Michael Walker on Zoom as well. Ken or Michael, are you speaking on behalf of the event? We can't hear you.
There we go. All right, I was working on my mute there. Sorry about that. Yeah, so let me try and get this video going here as well for you. Yeah, so more or less the same. We'll be stopping through, doing our lunch stop, maybe potentially doing a wreath laying, something like that, to for memorial services. Typically, what we do, we've been doing this for 20 years now. This is something that we're professionals about. We raise up anywhere from $800,000 to $1.2 million a year for veterans and children's foundations. The previous one we did was a legacy scholarship foundation for college opportunities. And yeah, I know that the application that I put in has a little bit of the route. Like I said, we'll be coming in from the west. A lot of routes that I went through, so I don't exactly remember the route number and whatnot. But and then we'll be exiting through the east, and any support that we can get to make it as smooth of a transition as possible. Like they said, about 250 to 400 bikes, depending. It can stretch to as much as 5-6 miles long. We typically stretch out so that it just keeps the safety for everyone. And yeah, as long as we get that little bit of support to help us get in and out, I mean, it takes us mere minutes and we'll be right out of your hair.
As far as, the food we served at the Legion.
Yes.
With that, as far as parking, I believe in the past, like we've shut down parts of Main Street for parking. Is that all stuff, Kimmy, that you've worked with them already on anything?
Yeah, they're asking for the 2 blocks of Main Street to be shut down, and there's a street closing resolution in the later in the agenda. So they want the Legion block and then the next block just to the west to be closed to accommodate all the bikes. They have, this is the first day of school. So adds an element of complication. We've told them the buses need to get through. Usually by 8:15, the buses are all through and, you know, that traffic has died down. So we do need to work around that, but they're not expected to get in, as I understand it, till around 10 o'clock. So that should still be fine. And they're just here for lunch and then leaving. So they'll be back open by the time school gets out. Even if it's hot and school lets out early, we'll make sure the school is aware of the fact that it could potentially still be closed, but we'll work together. I'm not sure if anybody's contacted the sheriff's office or who your escort is. Michael, have you guys talked to, or is the state troopers providing an escort, or what's the plan?
That's actually something I need to get. I know week by week, honestly, day by day now, things kind of change and alter. So I just need to get up with my National Riders chairman. He's the one who is an encyclopedia for this. So just kind of get up with him, see what the local police, or if it's the state police. I do believe we have support through the state of Iowa. I just need to verify who exactly that is.
And then I know typically when we shut down the streets too, we have conversations with businesses as well. So, you know, the other businesses that might maybe open during that time have been notified or anything as far as?
I haven't yet because this has kind of been unfolding, like our group with this, we met with them and we were kind of waiting. They won't give us even a head count until August 1st, because I think they're still taking registrations. But we can let people know when, I think more so have the 2 blocks blocked off just with the amount of bikes that are coming through, just for parking. But they literally will be here for lunch and then they're going to Muscatine. So it'll be a small amount of time, hopefully the least amount of inconvenience to everyone.
I agree with you.
You know.
Yeah, I think if you can talk with them, and again, with it being a Monday morning, earlier Monday, imagine some of the other restaurants may not be open, but as far as there's the law, there's the salon, there's
Right.
the hardware store, there's other businesses there, just want to make sure that they're aware, just because that could be inconvenience for them, so just.
Yeah,
whether you guys work well with them.
we will be talking, with the businesses to let them know. It won't be like, ta-da, here you go.
Any other questions or comments?
No, can't answer mine. I was just gonna ask the same question. Would it be coordinated for traffic control with anybody?
Anything? Good. Question about bills. All right. And then before we get to the question on bills, with BK's liquor license, anything different from years past?
Nothing different, no concerns.
That,
What is Civic Plus?
Civic Plus is our, website.
Okay. In the just time emergency, whatever that, is that a hazmat payment?
Yes. Yep, that's our annual.
Okay. Go on ahead.
other questions on the consent agenda items? Do we have a motion to consent the agenda? Motion by Mackey, second by Gordon. Gordon? Yes. Mackey? Yes. Morris?
Yes.
All right, takes us to item 8, the fire department report. Graduates.
July 1st this year, June ended very busy. It's not slowing down at all. Continues to be morning, noon and night. And this calls for everything. This is the best way to describe it. And it's like that all over our county and probably all over the country. Not changing. Now,
The record setting pace.
yeah,
Unfortunately.
absolutely.
Well, appreciate all that, you know, you can accrue to. Item 9, sheriff's office report. Anything?
No, we don't work nearly as hard as the fire department, so that's.
How, it's probably more of a Brad question, but how are we coming on November's? I hope. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Just as good as mine.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Are you talking about the jail?
Yeah,
So Sheriff Kunkel has asked to reserve this space for a public meeting in August.
good.
So there may be some more information available then.
That takes us to item 10, public works superintendent report. Right?
Next week we'll probably get started on all our weekdays, prep, cleaning up stuff, spotting the banners out. That, I do a little bit mowing, probably have them mow next week again and then. Uptown will probably, we'll skip it, so it's nice and long for weekdays. Keep doing our day-to-day stuff, hopefully the town will great. There you go.
Water towers, moving along nicely, they should be done, the sandblast on the inside. They're gonna take the weekend off, which everyone will be happy, there's a lot of activity up there, and then hopefully, finish up the painting next week, and then we gotta let it cure,
How long you gonna live here?
7 days. And then we can fill it back with water and be back on track, I'm gonna take the week off. Either take it off or start losing vacation days, so I voted to take vacation.
There you go.
So when I get back, we'll worry about going.
Okay.
Now,
everything gone fairly smoothly with the process?
It has, got off to a little bumpy start with communication, but that's all been solved and it's, looks good from the outside and yeah,
Feel comfortable moving forward like with our contract year to year now, they had an idea.
oh, yeah.
Good.
Well, yeah, appreciate all you guys do, and I know that especially when weekdays comes up, or as it comes up, it's extra legwork and time and everything, so again, appreciate everything you guys do to help support, that work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do item 11, item report. Thank you.
Well, we've reached the halfway point for summer reading and we have nearly 700 people who have already turned things in at the library this last month. And we've given out 1,500 small prizes. So we are seeing a lot of participation. And I would just like to highlight that library staff have done an incredible job keeping up with this pace that we see in the summer. And without all the staff and our summer help, I don't know how we could keep up with it all. I wanted to point out next week on Wednesday, we are hosting a CPR and AED instruction program with ambulance services. It's for all ages, no registration, and we'd love to see you guys come join us and learn about it. And we have those AEDs around town, and we thought it'd be really nice to have more people informed on how that works. And then I shared with City Council a little invitation. Sherry is not one for a spotlight, but even though she's not here, I would like to share that Sherry's celebrating 25 years at the library, and I don't think the library would be the place it is without Sherry. She is like sunshine to everybody, similar to Susie, always happy and like so wonderful. And I don't know that everybody knows even what Sherry does for us because she also has her full-time job, but Sherry is our cataloger. So she does everything to get all of the library materials ready for everyone. And that's for these 25 years. So it really would not run without Sherry's contribution. And she didn't want to be highlighted at City Council. She's much too like humble and all that she does. So instead, we're doing that small little celebration just with staff and City Council are invited and the other city departments so that we can just show her how much we appreciate her and just have a little celebration. Hope you guys can join us.
Thanks for the update. Thanks
Yeah.
for the invitation.
Thank you.
Takes us to item 12, the city engineer report. Dave.
At our second public meeting last night for the wastewater plant, good participation there, had some good questions come out of that. Continue to work on the design, have 60% plans due in August, so we're on track for that. Later in the agenda, we'll talk about the flood study and then also Trail Ridge. There is a preliminary plat up for approval. If that goes through, we have construction drawings waiting to be reviewed, and I'll start on that as soon as we get to that point.
Dave. Item 13, city attorney Kevin? No. Takes us down to new business. Item 14. Have a great Iowa City presentation.
Thank you, guys. I have some handouts to pass around, and I think I printed off 15, so there might be some extra if anyone in the audience wants them.
The council,
Yeah.
Matt there in the red shirt.
You
may just pass them down or.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Susie.
Yeah, so thank you for inviting me here, Cammie, Mayor Council, good evening, everyone. I'm Evan Doyle with Greater Iowa City. And this whole thing kind of originated with a lunch connection a little over a month ago, where the city of Solon partnered with Greater Iowa City and we hosted a Solon lunch connection, which was a very good success. There was more than 25 people there probably, and it was held at Bluebird, which was great. And at that lunch connection, I had kind of walked through just some general city of Solon data as a nice overview and thought it would be a good opportunity to just come here and share some of that data with the council. So thank you for running the slideshow, Cami. But so a little bit about Greater Iowa City. We are the county's Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Organization for Johnson County. We serve all of Johnson County. We partner with all the cities in Johnson County, and we do operate really on a partnership model. We have a place-based economic development lens, which kind of just implies that you do, like the downtown revitalization for Solon is kind of a good example of place-based economic development rather than a traditional sense, kind of getting companies and attracting companies, kind of building ground up rather than attracting in. And our mission is to elevate business, invest in strategic initiatives, and then advocate for the economic resiliency of all of Johnson County. Coalitions in Action, Better Together 2030. So Greater Iowa City also partners with the organization Better Together 2030, which is kind of a community-based plan that was adopted in 2022. We cover pillars 2, 3, and 4. Pillars 1 is covered by Think Iowa City, and pillar 5 is a social services pillar, which is covered by the Community Foundation of Johnson County and United Way of Johnson and Washington counties. Like I said, we really are a partnership model. We partner with a lot of different organizations, nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, and cities, obviously. So I'm really happy to be here tonight and have this presentation in front of you guys. So a little bit about the presentation. Greater Iowa City as an organization, we really lean into data. I do most of the data work on behalf of the organization. So I really just kind of want to talk about some Solon data points that was first pulled together for the Lunch Connection, and I kind of built on that and made it into a presentation. Very informal, so if anyone has any questions while I'm going through this, please just speak up, raise your hand. It's a lot of fun when the questions are asked, kind of go back and forth. And the data can be used for a lot of different things. You can be internal use for the city. You can use it to market the city and kind of the services, the pros of the city. You can kind of see some of the weaknesses. I think a good example is the RFP that was just released for the fire station redevelopment lot. I was happy to provide a little data overview and Cami attached at the end of the RFP. And it really does just kind of market the city a little bit.
Which slide do you want me to start on?
Just click two more and you're right there. Thank you. So before I get right into Solon's data, I do want to say we are, like I said, we are data driven. We have a dashboard on our website that's free and accessible to anyone. And we do cover the county, so the data is for all of Johnson County, not city to city. But there is a lot of free data on our website that anyone can go to at any time. You can see graphs, trends, and just download that data. But moving into the city of Solon. So when we look at data, when I like to look at data, we look at people, right? Like people make up the cities. People are really everything. So we break up people into kind of 3 different categories: residents, workers, and visitors. And that's kind of just the general theme for the slideshow and these data points. So a little bit about residents in Johnson County specifically. So Johnson County is the 3rd fastest growing county in the whole state of Iowa since 2013. So the last 13 years has been a lot of population growth for Johnson County. The only 2 counties that are faster growing than Johnson County are both Des Moines suburbs, essentially. So that's a pretty good scale to be on. I think we are growing very fast. Johnson County's grown 17% in the last 5 years alone. The city of Solon's really right on track with that. The city of Solon has grown 13% in the last 5 years. The most recent data show that Solon almost has 4,000 residents. And in the next 10 years, Solon's expected to grow by another almost 1,000 residents, which is pretty quick. A little bit about the residents in Solon. So socio-demographics, this is ethnicity, income, education. The median household income in Solon is $124,000. That is much higher than the state average, much higher than Johnson County's average. Johnson County as a whole's median income is about 78,000 or so. So very high income in Solon. There's some stats here on the bottom. Household income has grown almost 40%. So it's really, it's grown 40% in the last 5 years, which is much higher than the population growth, which is pretty interesting. And then there's a little population by age breakdown there. The median age for Solon is almost 40 years old. And that kind of plays into the housing element in Solon as well. So in Solon, there's 1,500 housing units. So there's almost 1 housing unit for every 2 people in Solon. And I do think it's it's cool that the housing units has grown 20% in the last 5 years. So population's grown 13% in the last 5 years. It's pretty rare that the housing units grow faster than population. So I think that's something to really be proud of because Johnson County as a whole really is kind of facing a housing shortage. Solon, you guys seem to be doing a really good job of getting those housing units up and allowing people to move into Solon. And to my point about household size, yeah, thank you. About household size and age. So median age was almost 40. 80% of the housing units here are owned, 20% are rentals, which is pretty high compared to the state. And then I have down here that the persons per household is 2.72, which is also much higher than the state and the county, which would kind of indicate maybe more of a family town in a sense, more people per household, more children, essentially is what that's saying. And you can kind of see here on the right, I think the cost burden is absolutely something to be proud of. Less than 10% of homeowners are cost burdened and less than 15% of renters are cost burdened. And cost burden essentially is spending more than 30% of your paycheck on your housing. In Johnson County as a whole, almost 50% of renters are cost burdened and Solon's at 15% or less. So that's really unique. And again, something to be proud of with the housing market. I thought this was interesting. 1 of every 4 households in Solon are new households. They've moved here within the last 4 years. So that's a little bit about residents in the city of Solon in general. I want to move on to visitors next and tourism. So Johnson County as a county has seen some increases in tourism ever since a very sharp decline during COVID. You can see here that the number of unique visitors to Johnson County was less than 4 million for the first time in a long time in COVID, and that's 2020. But the last 4 or 5 years have been kind of creeping back up to that 5 million unique visitors. So visitors are defined as anyone that does not live in the county and is just making a trip and stays there for more than 10 minutes. So Johnson County as a whole is increasing. This map here on the right is really a heat map for just the city of Solon, which is cool. I can get a little more specific with this data than this heat map. If it was needed or anything, I can kind of see where visitors come from, the zip codes, the counties, which is all pretty interesting. So for Solon, in 2025, there was almost 350,000 unique visitors that came through Solon, which is very high. It's down 8% in the last 4 years. Honestly, 8% is not that much. That's pretty consistent, I would say. But I did add it in there just because that number has crept down consistently from 2022 to 2025. So it's creeped really, really small the past 4 years. You can also see tourism trends. I think this is a pretty cool graph because there's clearly 2 spikes that stick out way above the rest. If you click to the next slide, obviously it's Solon Beef Days, right? Solon Beef Days is the huge spike. There's over 12,000 unique visitors that come to Solon for Solon Beef Days. So there's 12,000 people that don't live in Solon that are coming to Solon for Solon Beef Days. And I would actually ask you, because I'm all curious, what the other spike is. And I think it was June 7th, 2025. Big event.
Garage sales.
Garage sales, really? Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Like that is an attraction. So that's the second busiest day of 2025 is garage sales. But yeah, so like the normal trend right there is 6,000. So those peaks that are not the 2 major peaks are 6,000, and then over double the amount of normal visitors for Solon Beef Days, and almost 10,000 people for garage sales. So that's a little bit about visitors, and then I like to think about jobs and workers too. This graph is really telling, I think, and it's probably my favorite graph that I use. This really shows the flow of people throughout Solon during any given day, specifically focusing on like workers and employees, if you will. So the arrow on the left is indicating the number of people that come into the city of Solon for work every day. So it's saying that there's 892 people that don't live in Solon but are driving to Solon and work in Solon. That rounded circle was 152, 152 residents of Solon live and work in Solon. So they're not driving anywhere, they live here, which is usually a goal. It's not uncommon for Solon to be a net exporter, given there's a major metro to the south and the north. So a lot of people leave Solon for work, come back, live there during the night. And then the arrow on the right is kind of the exporting. So there's 1,400 people that live in Solon that do not work in Solon. So that's where the term net exporter really comes from. There's more people that leave Solon for work and come into Solon for work. You can narrow this down even further and see where the residents of Solon who are employed go for work. And I think this is a good chart. This is a good chart, because generally, you know, you have intuition or instincts that people are leaving for Cedar Rapids or people are leaving for Iowa City for work. They're staying, they're going to Des Moines, Davenport. You can find out, you know, where they're going. So a pretty good majority of residents in Solon that are in the workforce and employed go to Iowa City. And that's almost 34% go to Iowa City proper. That's not including the metro, right? So if you add Coralville and North Liberty in there, that's another 10+%. So really almost half of the workers in Solon go to Iowa City metropolitan area. And you can see here like 16% go north to Cedar Rapids. So it is kind of interesting seeing numbers to it and really understanding the split a little bit. And you can also get a good count of the businesses in Solon. Because this number is so few, I do think the error is a little bit larger. So you guys probably know best who the businesses are and how many there might be. What I found is there's 117 businesses in Solon. 15 of them are retail trade, so these are the top sectors for the businesses in Solon. Retail trade, accommodation, food, construction, and healthcare. Those top four are not far off than like Johnson County as a whole sector, which is pretty fascinating that it is pretty aligned. And I do say that it is a margin of error just because data is good and it's even better when you have that local context to put to these numbers. So just keep that in mind. It is nice to have the understanding locally of what's going on. This is residential leakage. So I put this in business climate because this is showing where residents are going outside of the city of Solon. Like, what are the top places that residents of Solon are going to that are not in Solon? And I put this in business climate because it can kind of help fill in the gaps as to what might be needed in Solon. So you can see here there's a list and there's a map. Fittingly, with the workers, a lot of these locations are in Iowa City area. There's only about 3 of them in Cedar Rapids area. And that probably is driven by the workforce that's driving to Iowa City every day for work, or Iowa City Metro. But you can see here, it's honestly just a lot of shopping, grocery shopping, and leisure. So I know that, you know, Sam's is in town, but a lot of people still grocery shop after work. And that's hard. I want to end with just a few of the data tools and where I pulled this data from. A majority of this data is public data. So it's US Census data, it's the state of Iowa data, census programs. But also a lot of the foot traffic data and the foot traffic counts come from a data source called Placer AI, which is what Greater Iowa City pays for, because it does give good insights into how people interact with a city or a property. So we have Placer AI. We have a partnership with Heartland Forward, which is a nonprofit think tank out of Arkansas, actually. And they provide us with a lot of good data that I can really tap into. And then a lot of it, like I said, is just kind of a good understanding of the public data sources and going in there and just kind of pulling some of that data. So I would end with, happy to be here. I'm glad to present this data. I'm happy to be a partner for data collection or support if anyone ever needs anything or if there's any questions. You know, I would love to support. The RFP was great. It was a fun project to work on. It's fun to see new data and kind of understand how people interact. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Any questions?
No, I'm gonna ask what residential leakage was.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but.
Some of it's pretty cool, and like you can really narrow it down to like certain properties like Hy-Vee. I mean, there's the top visited places within Solon are Casey's.
That didn't smell.
Both Casey's, number 1 and 2.
I wonder how, I'm curious of the high school population, how much of that's going there.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
And I'll add, if you don't mind, just wanted to, thank Evan for putting this presentation together. We've had a long time partnership with Greater Iowa City. And what they really do is they are that business connection, so they have access to a lot of information and resources and training that because of the city's partnership with Greater Iowa City, then that's extended through to the Solon businesses through Sedge. So it's really a three-legged partnership and that was the luncheon that was done at Bluebird. We have another one planned in the fall, a coffee. And the Solon businesses have the same access to information like this through this partnership.
Thanks a lot for.
Thank you, guys.
That takes us to item 15, earlier to state part 4, conditional zoning agreement amendment.
Yeah, this is just, it looks familiar. When we started this process, we had an overall development that had lot numbers on them. We had zoning assigned to each of the lots, but over the time we've changed phasing. So this basically includes the lots in part 4, the 20 lots that are there, and basically matches those up with what they should have been based on the original plat. So basically, these are 20 lots, there are gonna be 20 units on the lot. So this just matches that up, what was previously approved.
Questions? We have a motion to approve the conditional zoning agreement.
So
All right, motion by Morris, second by Gordon. Mackey?
Yes.
Morris?
yes,
All right, takes us to item 16, Railroad State Part 4 development agreement.
Yeah, this is just a normal process before we approve the preliminary plat, so they go ahead and get all the improvements in there. This is the start before you do the construction plans. So I don't know if there's anything that's really out of the ordinary here. We have an outlot here that's gonna have a trail on it that the city will take once the trail is put in. So other than that, it's pretty standard fare here for this development.
Ask anything that you guys have? All right. Any questions over the developer's agreement? If not, we have a motion for the development.
second,
Motion by Gordon, second by Morris. Gordon? Yes. Mackey? Yes. Morris?
yes,
All right, takes us to item 17, the resolution number 2628, Trail Ridge State Part 4 preliminary plat.
I'll start this one off. So, as you recall, Adam, Vaughn and Gary Raden Lang had come with a concept of this a while back. It's now gone through planning and zoning. Planning and zoning do recommend approval. You will notice on the resolution, there's some extra lines, some spaces, because the council had indicated they wanted to see parking on one side of the street. So there's room here to add some of those conditions that were talked about. Also, Dave will talk a little bit that there are a couple easements that are also required with this concept. So that's what that space is for. You want to talk about the other things, Dave?
Sure. So one of the issues that we're going to run up against in doing this is we're changing the direction of the sanitary sewer. So instead of it flowing to the east, by doing this section first, we have to flow that to the west. Lot 114 is already platted. So we need to get an easement on lot 114 because the sewer is going to be deep enough that it requires an easement for maintenance in the future and also for installation. So that is part of this. There's also a requirement that we have on part 3B, a turnaround easement on lot 117, because that's going to set as a dead end for a bit longer. And they did provide a turning template on the display that's here that shows they can turn a fire truck around in the area they've dedicated. So they'll put an easement over that lot and hold that easement until such time that the other section goes through, and then that easement will be vacated. But those were the two requests that we made for turnaround purposes and for easement, or to accommodate those issues.
And then there was the hard surface request that the council had so that would, those kind of four, kind of the outliers that would, council would want to include in the resolution.
Questions over? Any of that? comments. So as we go to, make a motion for the resolution, we want to, we include those 4 items that Amy Day covered. Do we have a motion for resolution 2628?
So
So we with those.
with 4 additional items.
All right, motion by Morris, second by Gordon, Max, yes, one.
Yes.
Takes us to item 18, Saddleback Estates concept.
Yeah, so, we have here tonight the developers of Saddleback Estates, Kevin Digman and, Steve Gordon. In 2022, I believe that they approached the city about annexation and a, development, which is known as a planned area development, single style homes, but in a planned area development adjacent to Saddleback Golf Course. They have approached the city a few times in recent years about transitioning that planned area development into a subdivision where there are individual lots for each property where that does not exist now. What exists now is a condominium style. So people basically have a condo for their house, but they don't own the land around it. And so because of the economy and just trends in the housing market, they've inquired a few times about what the process would be to transition that into a subdivision. So Kevin, Dave, and I have worked with them and met with them on a few occasions and provided an outline of some things that would need to be taken into consideration. In addition, the Building and Growth Committee of Greg Morris and John Farlier met on site with the developers in recent weeks, just to kind of just get their eyes on the site and kind of see from a visual standpoint, no one would know the difference. But there's obviously a lot of paperwork and legal process and precedent that would be set going this direction. So where we're at right now is there is a lot of formalities that would need to happen, including Board of Adjustment variances, and action, support from the property owners that they believe and understand that this is a benefit to them and they understand the impacts. So before they kind of venture into the formal process, they've asked to come before the full council. Get your feedback on the idea of what they're proposing for a couple reasons. One, it's a pretty complex process and they don't want to go through that just to have council not support it at the end. And 2, they need to, they're trying to promote this property. Their goal is to fill up these lots, and it gives them the ability to plan and go forward and how they're going to promote and sell these lots and get people moving to Solon. So that's my overview. Kevin and Dave have been active in this conversation as well, so I invite them to obviously jump in, and then of course the developers are here would like to have an opportunity to talk to the council.
Part of the complication with this is that it doesn't fit very well with our setbacks when we try to put lots where this was set up as a planned area development. So the planned area development is intended to dissolve some of those interior requirements, and now we're trying to put them back in place. So some of the things that we're challenged with is that this doesn't have necessarily a right of way. It's a private street in a planned area development. So to try to put something in there, the city won't maintain it because it's a private street. So we're looking at doing that as an outlot. That effectively acts the same way as a right of way, but it's maintained by them. Looking at that right of way and making it wide enough to have the sidewalks and most of the utilities inside of it, it leads to a 50-foot right of way or outlot width. When you put that centered on the street and look at where some of the existing houses are built, they don't meet the front yard setback requirement. So in order to do this, we have some challenges here, and that's the cause for the variance requests. We have some side yard issues, we have some rear yard setbacks, and if we require them to hold those, particularly on that area along 180th or on 5th Street, what you'll see is that that will push that, so those lots get so skinny that you can't hardly build anything on those. In order to still allow the same concept, essentially what they want to do is still build the same houses with the same footprints as was allowed in PAD, but create a lot to sell with the property. There'll be non-conforming lots in a lot of cases that require variances. So that's what they're asking for is, can we get to a point where we can still allow them to build this, the same footprint as what was laid out, where all the utilities are set up, but create lots even though they're going to be non-conforming? Generally, the answer is no. This is a unique situation. It's largely based off of them trying to sell the lots and getting the feedback that the people want to have a piece of land that goes with it because of the money they're putting in this investment. So that's the overview. The setbacks are listed on the concept drawing in the upper right. The variances that are requested. So there are some front yard requirements and they list the lots for those. The side yard requirements they list again. And then the lot width and the lot area are also requested. So that's what's in front of you. If you want any more details, feel free to ask questions. We'll try to fill in the blanks, but that's the general overview.
Go ahead. Well, I'm gonna mess some of this up, but when this planned area development, this area is not annexed in the city currently, right?
It is.
It is, okay, all right. And then, so who organizes or plans the planned area development that determines the lot size, how the houses can be built with the setbacks? Is that the developer, or do we have any oversight over that at the city?
The developer proposes it. There are things that we look at. So the buildings have to be at least 15 feet apart. That's an ISO requirement for fire protection. You don't want those buildings too close together. You want to be able to fight a fire. So they do have 15 feet, but our side yard setbacks, when we look at that, if you set it into lots, the side yard setback would require it to be further apart than that. But there are certain things that kind of go into it. The rear yard setback on the overall still has to comply. So even though you do a planned area development, you still have to honor that adjacent property right.
Okay. So I get what it takes to be compliant. That's what you're explaining, right? To be
Yes.
compliant with what we would.
We have some rules, but they lay it out the way that they want to within those rules.
And. Okay, I'll wait for them to talk.
Yeah, you guys have any questions before we start going?
Kevin, yeah, your thoughts?
I mean, I think they explained it well. It's gonna be, there, when you do a condo, there's always a way to dissolve the condo association. There's gonna be a lot of legal work on their part, especially since there's 6 or 7 people who own lots, not just the developers, like a normal subdivision. So, I mean, I think that's, it's doable. It's gonna take some work on their end, which is, I'm sure why they're here, because they'll spend a lot of money on attorneys and stuff, I'm sure, to get this to all work out. So, I mean, I think we can, from my standpoint, it can work. It's just gonna be a lot of detail work and things like that.
Dave, kind of the same thing?
Yes, we've looked at this quite a bit. We've put together a list of requirements that we feel are necessary, notifications, adjacent property owner permissions, make sure it's transparent, they understand what the impacts are to them, that they buy into it. All of that has already been done as far as upfront legwork. So we wanted to make sure that we had the consent of the people that already own the buildings and they understood what the impacts were going to be from a taxation standpoint, from a insurance standpoint, from a mortgage standpoint, all those different levels.
So the only other question I have right now before they speak is we would want 100% of those people highlighted right now to be in agreement, correct?
Yes.
So, and the other, if they're gonna do a subdivision, every owner in the subdivision has to sign off on it as a
That's kind of what I
consent.
thought, but I wanted to make sure.
So to do the subdivision, they'll have to have besides the developer, the people who own it will have to sign off on it. Or they won't record the plat.
Okay, thank you.
So turn over to Kevin and Kevin David with Saddleback Development. Cam, you don't have any other, did you have a picture of that subdivision by chance?
Yeah.
So going back to when we started this process, right, we had this parcel when we bought the golf course 4 or 5 years ago. We thought we could try to do it. We were encouraged with the city, tried to put up a single family development rather than try to put multifamily in there. Try to work within the boundaries of that lot. I mean, hindsight, we could have transferred some of the land from the golf course to make it work, but unfortunately, we're in a situation where we've got a street in there, we got homes in there, right? And, you know, and if most of you driven by there, you look, you think it's a single family subdivision. You would never think it's a condominium, right? But as most of you guys are homeowners would say, I don't really want to buy a condominium, right? And unfortunately, that was the mistake we made thinking this when we had some early meetings, we had some open houses at the clubhouse, had a lot of people interested and seemed like this was gonna be a really neat thing. People like the idea of having their yards maintained, but yet having a single family home, right? So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do, I know the setbacks don't conform and at the end of the day, if we built this out as is, you know, we could do that, and the only thing we're asking for is how somebody living there can take ownership of their property. Right, we could build a subdivision out with all these single family homes the way they are, it's just that they would be part of a condominium regime instead of owning their own lot. And we've done lots of things to try to dissect their lots, we've set them up as limited elements. We've just unfortunately have lost a lot of sales because of it, and quite frankly, you know, subdivision slowed. And we want to continue with the quality of homes we're putting in there. I mean, you know, there's a picture of what the subdivision was originally set out to look, but if we have to conform with the setbacks and the rules, some of these lots get so small, you couldn't build a home on. I mean, it just, the setbacks. But the one thing I will say, when you talk about the setbacks and some of those things we're trying to vary from, right? You know, one thing you have is you have a highway or road on one side, and you got the golf course on the other two. And the lots that do go back to the single family there are deep enough that they're, you know, the rear yards don't become an issue for them at all. So I know it's unusual. This isn't where we wanted to be. We're trying to keep the subdivision up to the standards it's are. You know, we don't want to turn it into a rental project where we're building less homes, smaller homes, cheaper homes so that we can rent them if we can't sell them. And we've just been encouraged. We've had lots, you know, I won't say lots, but we've had, you know, 5 or so deals that have never happened because people just don't want to buy into it because of it. It's our fault. We misread the market. We misread what we thought we could do, you know, and we're here trying to make it better for us, for the community. So, you know, nobody wants to drive by there and see empty lots, I'm sure. So that's the process. And we've been working with Dave and Canny on it. I mean, Kevin knows us. We worked with Kevin for 20 some years. I'm working with Hodge Construction, Iowa City. So we're just trying to make this work to, when somebody buys a home, boom, they feel like they're owning their lot is what it comes down to. And we've talked to all the folks that are there. I mean, they're all supportive of it. We'll get some letters of support to prove that to you guys. So we're just trying to get through this process, get you guys up front to know what we're trying to do, and then try to get your support going forward.
Thanks for coming in tonight, Kevin and Steve with that. Yeah, the concern I have is this development is only a few years old. It's the concept, when it was pitched to us, the council members up here weren't here when the conversations were had, with that. And so it's kind of the first time you guys are working through this. I remember at the time, this was the concept that your group wanted to do, and it took some work with the city on we don't have many of these in town. And that it's the council at the time wanted single family development. And so this concept tried to help get after that way. The concerns I have are with the road width from a maintenance standpoint. Would it stay a private road? Would it become a public road?
It's private. It will stay private.
Look at the sidewalks, the setbacks, everything where it's a 4-year-old development and went from we worked with you to have a concept to fit what you're looking for, and 4 years later, now you want to change course on it and have unconforming or non-conforming lots, having the homes not meet the setbacks. Like, to me, it's what kind of message does that send to any other developer that wants to come do business with Solon, whereas here's our plan, we want to do this. We get the lot sizes that we want because we're gonna change it after the fact to put as many homes in here and not meet requirements that we have. So those are the concerns I have.
Sure.
With it. I don't know what the concerns the other council.
Yeah, no, and I understand. I mean, just know that that's not how we do business. It wasn't our intent to be here today and say, let's do this and then ask for something different. No, that was not what we wanted to do, so.
I'm glad you said that, because I agree with 100% of it, and, I'm new, so if I ask anything repetitive, I don't mean to insult anybody that's in the know.
But I agree with everything Dan just said, and I remember when that first got developed, the golf out at Saddleback, and you had the presentation models sitting inside there. Do you recall what the price range for those units was? I think what the top was closer towards 800, and the lowest was what, 725, something in there.
The original.
On the
Yeah,
five design,
yeah,
whatever was
yeah.
going in.
I would, costs have completely changed in the last 4 or 5 years since those meetings, but I think at that point, we thought we'd be in the, starting at the 5s maybe and up to the 8s.
Okay.
From a price standpoint for the houses.
I just thought personally, I thought I was like 800,000 for one of those, with square footage and everything.
I think that's what we found out after we got building them.
Right.
And we hit that window when that was here and then prices went to here.
And so I can appreciate your situation and, you were genuine about the mistake and stuff and for that, but I'm gonna have to really use some thinking about this. So thank you for your time. Thank you for providing the information.
Very good. Have any thoughts, questions, comments?
I'm just gonna repeat both you guys, so. I know, John.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, we were there to look at it, the concern is lot size, that's really what it comes down to. Width and depth. As I shared with you guys, my concern is if we do this. The next person or the next group. That is my biggest concern. So we don't have to repeat this or go down that road again. And I'm not sure how we as a council can protect ourselves. I will say this, I have confidence in you guys doing it right. But there's no doubt in my mind of that. As I stated when we were out there, if we do it, what's gonna prevent us from having to do it, the next person coming in, that's Craig's concern.
I will, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, there have been, and I work in a bunch of cities, and this has been the trend with developments going away from the condominium developments because of these same issues. I've had this in 3 or 4 of my cities that I've worked with, so this is not a problem that's just for us. So I just want to, so I would think if we go to the subdivision part, that it shouldn't change again, but if we ever have a development that comes in like this with the condo association, we should make sure we think long and hard about it because this has been an issue in numerous places. And I know there's issues with this in other metropolitan areas also, from I've heard from some developers.
And with that is, I just remember when the concept came in, that there were concerns about street width, the lot size, all those, and it came to, I feel like the city worked with you very well to allow this concept to come to life with it, and I think there were concerns from the council at that time with it. We do have other developments in town that have brought up smaller lot sizes, that we have worked with them to do that, and I'm just very concerned about the precedent that this could set. With it, again, as Greg said, with the quality of work that you guys do, the reputation that you have, it is great. So there's no concern there. To me, it's what kind of message does this send? When it took some selling to get the council at the time to buy into this concept to begin with, and then 4 years later, now it's wait, we want to go back to and kind of do what that council had asked originally.
Yeah, I had a legal question real quick.
Sure.
So they're annexed in the city limits.
Yep.
We have allowed the planned area development developer, and checking if I'm wrong, developer lays it out, we approve that plan. If this is a situation where they can't afford or they don't follow through with the original development plans, if we don't agree to this request, I also don't want it to turn into a rental city out there. Is that something that they could do, or does that fall back on the city to approve for I don't know, zoning for rental?
No,
residential
you're allowed, if you have a single family home, to rent out there. There is there's nothing the city can say you can't rent your property out. So, that's they would be able to rent that if they built the houses now, whether they built,
But what, I guess my question, isn't to build like a fourplex of apartments.
Oh, no,
Like that.
they would have to, they could build a single family house. They can't build a fourplex on these lots like
Gotcha,
that.
okay.
I think I misunderstood what you were saying.
There's an apartment.
Yeah,
building sitting
yeah,
on-
no, they'd have to come back through for that. But they can rent, if they built the houses, they could rent them.
Okay.
And I guess what I'd like to see from the Hodge group is some letters from the folks that live out there and their thoughts. I'd just be curious to see what they say about lot size, neighbors, you know, stuff like that, would probably allow me to make a better decision. I think you guys are doing right, I really do, but I also would like to hear from people that live out there, make sure that they understand what's going on. Is that fair, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you can ask, like I said, to record a subdivision, they will have to sign a document that gets recorded. But it just says they consent to that. It doesn't mean, and actually there's some other complications because any mortgage holder has to consent to it also. So
Yeah.
if they don't own them outright, their mortgage holder will have to consent to the subdivision too. Like I said, there's a lot of legal work that have to be done. So,
Sure.
but that doesn't mean they understand, you know. I'm not gonna say what they understand or not, so I understand where you're asking that question, so.
I feel like
And I'm not saying Kevin or Hodge wouldn't explain it to him, yeah. That's not what I'm implying at all.
the thing that probably jumps out the most to me is just the number of variances that would be needed for this. And to me, that just, it sends the wrong message on that. So I don't know if there's a concept where there's fewer variances. If it's typically when we grant variances for setbacks and things like that, we're talking a home that was built decades ago and there's a change. This is all new construction, so that's kind of where it sits with me. Other questions, comments? So it kind of sounds like probably some more information may be needed.
I mean, but is this something that would start at the Board of Adjustment?
It would, so their next formal process would be at the Board of Adjustment. Because the Board of Adjustment they control, they're the decision makers for any variances to zoning.
Sure.
So the setbacks, the lot sizes, all that would go through. So that's why they've shown each lot, what the setback requirements, variances are for each lot and the lot size. So the Board of Adjustment will make that final decision. The council cannot overrule that decision, but they can send it back to them and ask them to reconsider. So their say is kind of final. But that's a formal process. It's a timely process. It's a complicated process that that's just to be able to submit the subdivision. They can't even submit the subdivision because it doesn't meet our requirements. So that those variances are just opening the door so they can come back and submit that subdivision. And then, of course, the council has ultimate say on whether to approve the subdivision.
And so just kind of look at the whole picture, the Board of Adjustments for variances, like come to council. I would assume council would send it to P and Z. P and Z would then send it back to council.
I think that's kind of where we're at, right?
I don't know if I wanna make them come through the roof like that. I mean, I'd just rather vote on now. I mean, that just seems.
I don't think
wrong.
we do.
Oh,
You don't have,
sorry.
you can't, the city council does not have the right to grant a variance
Right.
of.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
No, I was just talking about, that was like, that would be the whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
they-
for it to
They,
go
they
through
just
for-
bring another final plat back with the one lot divided into what they have shown on there. So that has to go through P and Z just like any other subdivision at that point. But they would need the variance from the Board of Adjustment first, because it doesn't make any sense, because you guys wouldn't be able to approve it that way.
No, what I'm saying is we can even vote right now to send it to the Board of Adjustments, correct? Is that further?
This is just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they can take it to the Board of Adjustment.
They can
Anytime.
take it anytime,
Yep.
it's just that it's not their ultimate goal. their ultimate approval in this process is the city council.
Yeah.
So it would be a waste of time if the council did not support this switch to go to the Board of Adjustment, if the council's not gonna ultimately support it.
Okay.
Still working.
It's complicated.
This is a different process too, obviously.
We don't see things very often.
No.
Yeah, we discuss.
No,
But I think they're just looking for feedback, right?
They're just looking for feedback. Do you support them to keep forward motion?
I want to send on a roll call.
It
No.
kind of, the feel that I'm getting is that council wants a little bit more time, to think through this. We also have two council members absent this evening as well. I know that John is part of the meetings as the, on the growth committee, so he had some background on that.
I would encourage, from my standpoint, I would encourage you to continue to do your homework. Break things back. Allow us to understand it better, and I would also encourage you to work with Kevin, our attorney, to make sure that whatever you're doing, it gets done right, so it does not continue to go down the wrong road. Okay. Would you, a different question, this was approved, would you put some spec homes up there or not?
If this was approved,
Yes.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Makes a difference still. In my mind, because that's property tax.
Yeah.
are all the homes that are currently there, are they privately owned or are there any rentals?
What's that
The
now?
homes that are there now, Are they all-
There's two of them, well, we had rented two, one of them was actually gonna buy. And then so lot 7 is, yeah,
Six owners and 7 owners closing here in a couple days. They had rented the house and they chose to buy, so they're closing, and then the other last house is there.
Sounds good.
You guys have any other questions?
Just, we have talked to all the owners individually and personally, and they, have indicated verbally that they are supporting the, but we appreciate your feedback. We can, certainly try to get them 2 meetings to
In writing,
Verbalize that.
in writing would help me.
yeah, we will certainly do that, of course, but, we can even try to see if they'll be willing to come and talk at a meeting on that.
Sure.
As well, so. I think they understand that it helps them as from a future sale and a value standpoint, so.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That takes us to item 19, storm water report, 26. Dave?
Yeah, so, as you're aware, we had a bit of rain early to mid-June, over 7 inches in a week, according to the rain gauge of the wastewater plant, which is the best for local rainfall. We can go off the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City gauges and get, similar results, but, due to that, there were some issues that, were identified. We've been out there looking over those areas, trying to figure out, if there were issues that led to that. If this is to be expected, if it was within the design that was from the original subdivision, if there are other issues that need to be addressed. This does, have a history, in 2016, I believe it was. There was similar flooding in that area when, we had the issue of, further that the city replaced a larger storm sewer due to an area calculation that was, incorrect. So at that time, we had looked at some other areas as well, and there were some of the same areas that are overflows. What happens is that, the methodology, from the design standards that were in place then and still in place now, the 5-year rain event is supposed to pass through the storm sewer system. And beyond that, it's supposed to run overland and swales. Those swales are in easements. The amount of water that's running through those swales is what's causing concern, and there are properties that are damaged in this most recent event. So we went out, took a look at, the areas, of concern right after this happened with city staff. Inspected the storm sewer pipes, looked at the intakes, wanted to make sure things weren't plugged. There weren't other extenuating circumstances that were causing some issues. Also took a look at the rain event and, from the rain gauge, Dave Richards provided some information, 2.8 inches on the 10th, or on the 11th rather. That caused this, and that happened in a very short span of time. Now, that rain event also happened after we had a considerable amount of rain, the week leading up to that. Normally in rainfall calculations, when you do runoff, you expect some of that rainfall to infiltrate into the soil. That's called initial abstraction. That doesn't happen when the soil is saturated. So that same rain event that could have happened during the dry period that wouldn't have resulted in as much runoff now doesn't have that initial infiltration. So that contributes to more runoff, and it changes the classification of the storm a little bit. In the report, or not in the report, but right after the memo, there's NOAA Atlas 14. That's what's used to identify or classify rain events. And you'll see that blue cell, the 30 minutes, 2.5 inches of rain or 2.4. That's somewhere between the 50 and 100. That's under normal conditions. If you add the amount that would have otherwise infiltrated in as runoff, then it gets above that. So we get close to that 100-year event, somewhere in that 50, 100, 200 range. So we're at the upper end. We're well beyond what the storm sewer can handle, and at the upper end of what the swales will handle. Still, it does raise concern that this happens fairly frequently. There's a little bit of a misnomer as far as what 100-year flood means, what 200-year flood means. It doesn't mean that it happens every 100 years on the clock or every 200 years on the clock. It means that it has a certain percentage, like a 1% is 1 in 100. A 0.5% chance of occurring is 1 in 200. So if you look at that, that's how they classify this. So when you see that average recurrence interval in years, that's what they're attempting to try to explain. It's complicated to understand that, but that's the intent. There's a series of pictures in the report that are after the rainfall. And there's also an overview of the flood areas that were investigated. So going past that first page of the report that shows the flood areas, it starts to show the photos. And Cami, I don't know if you have this available that you can pull up so the people in the audience can see it too. So right after that, there should be an overview. There we go.
Here?
Yes.
While we're ready, Matt, how long have you worked over there?
Around 6 years,
How many times has it done that?
twice now,
Once.
twice since I worked there. I think, it happened the year prior to the neighbors.
So the first area is 1202 Wood Lily. That's the south area that we were looking at in Wood Lily. And the pictures at the top show the swale on either side of the house. The intake at the back is shown on the bottom left, and then the storm sewer pipe inside that intake is shown there. So you can see it's pretty clean inside there. If you look at that lower left picture though, you do see a bunch of corn residue that's just behind the fence. And that comes into play in a couple of the other areas as well. Going to the next page, you can see the area. This is after the rainfall, not during the rainfall, clearly. Just showing the condition of the site. You can see the utility boxes across the street in the upper left. That's in the area where the water is supposed to overflow and run down into the wetland area. The top right picture shows the front yard of 1202 Wood Lily looking at the adjacent property. And you can see there are some black tile lines running there. Those two were running full with sump pumps while we were there visiting. One was cycling, the other was constant, and those are not your 2-inch discharge lines. Those are much larger, and that's a lot of water coming through there. You can see on the sidewalk how big that's spreading out. Next photo down is the next area up at 1004 Wood Lily. Again, just showing the conditions, the swales, so you get an idea as to what the area looks like when it's not flooded. And then we go up a little bit further and we have the same thing at 906 on the next page, Ken. So in the upper right, you can see the intake at 906 Wood Lily. And that's the same style of intake. There's a little bit of a berm that was built, and they've done some landscaping to try to pull the water from the south up to that intake. Down below that, the other areas that we looked at were First Street, between Cedar Street and Highway 1, and then the detention basin at Sobers, as well as the yard between Sobers and the detention basin right next to 601. So that gives you an idea of what it looks like when it's not flooded, and then the next pictures show you what happens when we get a heavy rainfall. So the 1204 area that we looked at, you can see from the field, the water coming across, you can see the residue caught up in the fence on the bottom. And you can see how close it gets to that house, right up to the window well in the upper right photo. The front yard, the overflow swale, you can see that with the utility box blocking some of the flow. And you see 1204 front yard on the lower right and what that street looks like. That's a pretty long area. The water's still flowing over the curb, so that gives you an idea. It's about 6 inches at the curb height. So that's the depth of water in that area. Next page goes up to the next area that we were looking at, 1006. You can see the water going through the swale there out to the street. That area, the intakes on the street were able to keep up and it wasn't overflowing. The upper right shows the backyard of 1006 Wood Lily. And then the lower left shows the area between the houses, right before that basketball hoop on the upper part. And the lower right shows a view from the window. And that was provided by the resident. Following page goes up to the upper level, or the upper area, 906 Wood Lily. And that shows water flowing between the houses and going out. This is actually not a swale with an easement. This is just an area between the houses that's graded to carry water. But the area that the water was supposed to go with that landscaping up to that intake was overwhelmed and the water went around to the south as well. And you can see on the north side what that area looked like with the playground or with the play equipment in there and water running through the drainage swale. So that's the conditions that we're dealing with when we get heavy rainfall. Certainly if you live there, you'd be alarmed at that amount of water going through. We did have, I think, 2 houses at the lower end that received water in the basements. One was due to, I believe, a sump pump backup. Is that correct? It wasn't able to keep up.
You talking about my neighbor's house?
On yours?
Yeah, my sump pump didn't do that.
And then the neighbor to the north was reported that it went over the window well. Is that correct?
For a short period of time.
Okay.
I believe he has 2 sump pumps and it's still coming up through.
Right. The next sheet just shows the condition. This wasn't during the flood, but Mr. Heber was in here at council last time and expressed some concern about that stormwater basin that's there. That was after the rain had subsided and it was in that condition for quite some time. The drain was plugged and Chris, I don't know if you guys were able to find anything out from your investigation.
We're kind of waiting for it to dry up a little bit just so we get a better image with our camera. We cameraed it in today. Made it about 80 feet, which is directly behind Mr. Heber's house. And there's definitely some roots and some leaves that are creating a stoppage. Great picture, so I think we have to dig and remove the section to remove the blockage and then continue cameraing.
So Kim and I have talked about this, and this was before council a number of years ago as well. This is part of a private stormwater from Watershed Court. This is something that was of concern earlier. They did clean it up quite a bit, as you can see. Prior to this, it was full of willow trees and had a lot of debris in it. This looks like a much cleaner basin and it would operate better. Clearly, if the outlet pipe was working, but you can see from the upper right what happens when the outlet pipe doesn't work. It was reported that pipe was perforated, so instead of carrying water through, that pipe plugged, the pressure inside the basin just causes that water to perk up through the ground and run overland, and that whole area is saturated up to their houses, and those sump pumps run quite a bit, so. That's the general overview of the investigation that we looked at so far. And then, as I mentioned, we did go back through and check the drainage calculations for the original development. The pipes were sized for the 5-year. The methodology has changed a little bit. 2001, there was a methodology in place. It was updated when SUDAS came out. And I went from Iowa Stormwater Management Manual to SUDAS. Then there was another change made in the earlier part of when someone adopted it, and that has the current 2015 version of runoff calculations. So there's different factors that go into how you calculate it in different points in time. At the time that they did the development, the calculations were accurate to the point that they could make them. There was a small difference in the drainage areas, not substantial, but there was a difference. And that has to do with going off of the 10-foot USGS map contours as opposed to the 1-foot contours that we have available to us now. So the higher resolution provides better definition to outline the boundary, which causes the change in the boundary. That being said, the 5-year looks like it's still accommodated under a somewhat flooded condition, about a foot over water over the intakes, but before it goes over the swale. The overland swale, we haven't identified yet because we just finished the survey yesterday, but I want to take a look at the shape of that swale and how much depth that requires in that shape to get the water to go through, as opposed to what was in the original design. And then in order to come up with solutions, we're likely going to have to do some modeling to figure out the combination of the pipe flow and the swale and what would need to be done in order to accommodate without having as high of a flood elevation. That contributes more cost, obviously, and we can't proceed with that until we get direction from council. But that's where we're at with it. Certainly, looking at some low hanging fruit here. I think if we switch out the intakes on the pipe, given that the pipe can carry the flow when the intakes are surcharged in the street, we might be able to get more in the backyard. That's certainly not going to be enough to accommodate the 100-year flows. The next step is, if we were to look at improvements to try to capture more of that and not have water go close to the houses, what does that take with the grading that's in place for the houses that were built, and how much cost is associated with that? So that would be the next steps, is to do the model to figure that out, make the recommendations, and put the cost estimates together and decide whether the city is going to move forward with the CIP or if there's some other option available to try to get funding for that.
Questions? Comments? My guess is we should do the model and figure out what some options are with this. Again, this is great information to have. It's, as he said, it's partial information. It helps tell part of the story, but we don't know what the solution is without additional work. That would be kind of my thought. I don't know the guys' thoughts.
Usually, yeah, I guess.
What I suggested, what I recommended is that Dave, if there are any immediate things that we can do now, I recommend that we identify those and do them. And I think that's, he's indicated there's some of those storm intakes, we could look at resizing those. That additional modeling, and I already authorized Dave to proceed with the surveying because that's essential for him to just even put this report together. We're getting into what, it could be, extended costs. I would recommend that Dave put together, at least, a basic estimate, so the council has some idea what the modeling is gonna cost, what a timeline is, because if we get another heavy rain this summer, this modeling is not gonna help these folks. So we need to figure out what we can do now, and then what the cost of that modeling is and what the timeline is to get that information, so council can make decisions on if there's things that can be done. I feel like the modeling is important, but I think it's action that's even more important. There are things we can do. So that would be my recommendation at council. It's hard to make a decision when you don't know what the cost is, but I'm sure Dave could send that, get something together, get that to the council, so that at least you have some idea what you're approving. And that's where we're looking for today. You know, this is a right now report. This is what we know. We've identified, we know the problem areas. We know there's some potential short-term solutions. We need to figure out what those are quickly, but yet still look at that preventative plan. How do we keep this, you know, from continuing to happen as Matt shared?
One of the items that came out of doing this evaluation was the recommendation, I already made this to Cami, was that rather than putting stormwater easements adjacent to houses and allowing them to build, 8 feet from the property line, a 16-foot easement, to try to contain the stormwater, is some of the communities that we work for, they have gone to the point where if there's an overland flow route that is going to carry a reasonable amount of water, that has to be an outlot, not part of a platted lot with an easement on it. The city is going to own and maintain that, and that has to be contained within that, so we can control what happens with that grading. We have to go in and do maintenance and whatnot, so we can do that without having to get on private property. And it pushes those houses further away from that area, it gets better flow area. So past practice was you were trying to make the most use of the land. You could do that in an easement. That was accepted in most communities, but I think it's recommended to go away from that and just make it an outlot in major drainage areas.
And I think what we learned by being out there on site, houses don't build at the same time. So while there may be a appropriate swale in place when this house is built, by the time this house is built, the swales get impacted by each build. And so this is what Dave is suggesting is gonna allow the city to control that, not each developer or each builder. It would lessen their ability to impact how that drainage is happening for each of those new houses. So I think it's a great idea.
In the back of the packet, there's some preliminary evaluation in here just to give you an idea of the areas of drain to those outlots or to those easements. Maybe you can pull that up.
I think mine is not, I think mine's sideways. Which one? Close.
Yeah, that's a little bit sideways, but it gives you an idea for how big of an area from that farm field drains between those houses. So it's not just small areas. We're looking at 20 acres from Mackey's property. You go up towards Wheelers and there's 51 acres that drains to that. Then you go up a little further to 904 and 906 at Peters. That's just under or just over 9 acres that goes through there. So these are not small areas. And the issue gets to be that there are such different conditions from the design condition. So the initial condition here is that it's a crop residue field, and that has some restriction on how much water runs off. It's a long area, so there's a long travel path from the furthest point to get there. It derates the intensity of the rainfall. There's different things that happen here. And then when you get this saturated condition, it erases all of that. So the design condition changes considerably when you have these back-to-back rain events. It's not designed for that. And you have these heavy runoffs. And we get to a point where when you exceed that 100-year and the flume or the swale that's in there is designed to contain that extra flow that comes through there pushes it up and it's against the buildings. And now the sump pumps can't keep up and you see these issues, or you overtop a window well if there's issues going on. And then further combined with that residue plugs the intakes. Now you lose that capacity and it all has to go through the swale, or most of it does. And that raises the water level even higher to get through there. And then if the grading that's done there, you see in some of those swales, it doesn't go from the intake straight out to the street. Some of those have to climb a little bit and then drop over. So the survey that we're doing and the modeling that we're doing will help to identify those issues. And then we'll have to work to try to address whether we want to try to regrade. And in some of those houses, it's already very steep. You're not going to be able to get a bigger swale through there. So the solution there is likely going to be doing something with additional piping or piping on the south side and trying to pick up some of that flow that way. So things that we'll have to look at as we get into it more, but too much detail to be able to just take a look at it and give you a quick answer. That's the reason for the modeling. After that, yeah, I've got some photos in here from right after development, and you can see from the photo. This is the aerial, and it shows the way that the water flowed across that development. Even though they have intakes in certain spots, the main goes where it wants to go. So that swale on that first one where it says Peters, that's supposed to go between Peters and the Garrett. And the water wanted to go to the south end, so he's put that swale in the area to the north, and particularly when that area gets blocked by the corn stalks, it's going to fan out even further and affect more properties. As we know from trying to deal with this in the past, the adjacent property owner isn't amenable to letting us get on the property and do grading out there. They flat out told us no. We'd have to condemn for that, and that gets into a whole nother issue that Kevin probably wants to stay away from.
If possible.
Yeah. So you get down to the next one, between Wheelers and the Spences on the next page, and you can see the same thing, the area to the right, that's a little bit darker, that's showing the saturated soil, and you can see a little bit of a channelized area where the water wants to flow. And it does go up to about the center of that Spence lot and then flows south to where the intake is between Wheeler and Spence, and then goes to the west of the wetland basin. And the last photo shows, again, the intake was put where the north drainage path intersected the east lot of the development between Owens and Dorans, but the water wants to go south to the center of the lot when it was originally graded. You can see the pattern there, and we're still trying to get it captured and going to the south of that Owen lot. So some of these things from past, you can see where the water naturally wanted to go. And you can see where the developer had to pick a point, either on the north side of the lot or south side of the lot, to put an easement through and to try to put it in where it intercepted the soonest. And we can't do any grading on the east side of the fence, so you're trying to do all that on the property. You get heavy rain and that little bit of grading that you do gets overwhelmed, and then the water goes where it wants to go again. Unfortunately, there's houses in the way. So that, hopefully that gives you a good overview of the situation, gives you a good look at what happens when it floods, what we're trying to address. And
thanks for putting that together, David, walking through that. So it sounds like, if we can identify which actions can be taken soon, and then getting the quote timeline for the modeling on that. Make some decisions on kind of next steps. Next stage. That takes us to item 20, resolution 2629, the street closure with the American Legion Legacy Run. Had discussion on this earlier during the consent agenda. Any additional information on this one?
Again, it's first day of school. It's the 2 blocks, directly, the first block directly in front of the Legion, and then the next block, where Sam's and, but not the actual intersection, by Big Road. That intersection, Iowa would remain open, to run, north-south.
Questions or concerns with street closure? Move to approve. We have a motion by Morris, second by Mackey. Gordon? Yes. Mackey? Yes. Morris?
Yes.
Takes us to item 21, resolution 2630, authorizing city staff.
Yeah, this resolution authorizes city staff to conduct usual business and pay bills. Typically, we do not hold a second meeting in July unless there is extended business. There is not any extended business on the agenda book at this time. So this would mean the next meeting would be August 5th. And this resolution allows city staff to pay the bills as needed between this meeting and August 5th.
This is one that I'm good typically do each year. Motion to approve resolution 2630. So, motion by Mackey, second by Gordon. Gordon? Yes. Mackey? Yes. Morris?
Yes.
Takes to item 22, resolution 2631, the fiscal 27 wages and salaries. So just a little bit of background on this being your first year, for this. So, we complete Cammie's annual review, typically go into close, session for that, to go over the review, and then we have a resolution, for that. All other wages we do as part of the resolution earlier, in the year with that. And so, since we didn't have, or we weren't able to go into closed session, this evening, wish that we still have the resolution since we are in the new fiscal year, for it. I don't know, Cammie, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so the merit policy allows for 2% for employees that meet the performance criteria. And then 3% was the COLA that was approved for the at budget time, recommended by the personnel committee. And so these wages are done annually, each July 1st for the next fiscal year. And then they go into effect the first pay period, which is July 13th, I believe. So the first pay period. So each of the employees are evaluated by a performance evaluation, and these wages will go into effect for the next fiscal year.
Any questions to the left, my left? Great. Just wanna make sure you're all. That's what counts every day. That's what counts. I'll move to approve it. I'll second.
Motion by Morris, second by Mackey. Gordon? Yep. Mackey? Yep.
Yes.
I take this down to the motion.
I heard that.
Our other business, so local and committee, updates, any big changes on, or updates since our last council meeting?
Just quickly, I'll run through these. Streets Committee, we'll be getting together after, obviously, all the beef days. We are gonna be prioritizing street projects and curb and gutter projects. We also have some storm intakes that we know need addressed. And so those are all on our radar. We're gonna be kind of prioritizing those here after we get through beef days. So that committee will be meeting again. Right now, the Finance Committee is reviewing an updated purchasing policy, so that'll be coming before the full council, probably in the next few meetings. Personnel Committee's been working with the mayor on my review. The Building and Needs and Growth, just putting them on alert that those RFPs are going to be due August 7th. And obviously, I think there's gonna have to be some discussion on how we're gonna handle that. The Building Needs Growth Committee also combined with the Community Center Committee and met in June to talk about some steps necessary to move the future rec center project forward. Where we're at on that is that there are different avenues versus a private path versus a public path that Kevin and I have been tasked to research. We're meeting next week to get that all outlined for the committee. So we'll see some forward progress on that for the committee to make some decisions. The school committee is going to be meeting on June 8th, or for the 28th, or the city school committee is going to be meeting on July 8th to hopefully finalize the language in the 2080 agreement for the SRNA, and then the fringe area agreement.
Just, it's in the county's, purview right now, waiting for comments.
Thank you for all the updates. Take us to item 24, city clerk's report.
Busy.
All right, item 25, city administrator.
Few updates. One, we received a site plan for the school's administration building. The plan is to put that on the location where they tore down that house on Iowa Street a few years ago. It's pretty small, but on that lot nice. We'll be looking at that. That will go to planning and zoning at the end of the month. Garbage is on Friday as planned with the holiday, so been getting a lot of questions about that. So they'll be picking up on Friday as planned. Also, July is Park and Recreation Month. So thank your local Park and Recreation staff for all their work because they do a great job. And then finally, just want to let everybody know that the city offices will be closed on Friday, July 3rd in observance of the July 4th holiday.
Okay. Items, 26, council comments? Yes, have? Okay, so item 27 there, comments, so open house, we had over the weekend, just want to say thank you to city staff for the prep, for all the buildings, but then also for staffing it as well, on Saturday. And then, we had a couple special meetings, or public information sessions that city staff led as well with the water rate, so thank you for doing those, too, it's, I know there's a lot of nights that you spend outside of the normal working hours, and we had a couple more on there, so thank you just for continued dedication. And everything. And with that, I'll look to a motion to adjourn. Okay, motion by, you're gonna say by Warren, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Pretty good start.
I think.